Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for being here. We are going to talk through some aspects of the Training to Teach program for you, for our hopeful participants for a future soon to be implemented version of this program. My name is Jeremy Richards. I'm the course director for the program, and it's exciting to see so many of you here today. As you may have heard from some of your other colleagues across Egypt, this is a program that we've been doing with different cohorts of and iterations of Egyptian medical educators for the past several months through Harvard Medical School. And we are excited to see if you're interested in and hope that you're willing to become a part of this iteration of the T2t program. Over the next maybe 20 or 30 minutes or so, I'm going to talk through some different aspects of the curriculum of this 6-month, pretty intensive teaching-based program. And then if there's questions that you may have, please let us know via the chat. If there's things that we can try to clarify, please let us know using either the chat, or I see some people are already raising their hands to ask questions, and we'll definitely try to address those issues, questions, and areas of interest as we move forward. But the first part of this, of our time together at least, is going to be a little bit more focused on just going through the content of what this program is all about from our perspective in terms of an organization, in terms of a curriculum, in terms of what we hope that you're going to get out of this program if you choose to be a part of it. So again, thank you for being here. As we move forward, please use the chat, raise your hand, and let us know if there's questions, issues that we can try to address about this program as we move forward. If you're not if you're not muted, please, that would be great to mute yourself, just so that we can have a minimization of distractions as we move forward, and so that we can try to ensure that other people aren't sent off in a different direction. If you have a question, please use the chat. If you have an issue or want something to be addressed, please raise your hand, and we can try to address that as we move forward. I will probably, if it's okay with everybody, I'm glad the sound is okay, go through the chat at the end of this brief presentation. And so if there's an immediate question, use the hand raise function so that we can ensure that we address that going forward. So the T2t program that we've set up is really focused on you. It's about Egyptian medical educators, and the idea is to try to help build up the different skills, knowledge, concepts, and topics that may be helpful for you in working with your learners, whether that's in the clinical, the classroom, or other settings. And so based on our partnership with the Ministry of Health through Egypt, we at Harvard Medical School have tried to identify the different topics and concepts that may be of most value for you, that may help you in dealing with students or residents or other learners in different clinical or classroom-based settings, to try to really elevate your skills as medical educators, as leaders in medical education, and as medical education researchers. So that's the purpose of this program, and the primary goal that we have in collaborating with and working with you to try to move all of these different components forward. Why should you're busy, why should you try to participate in this T2t program, in this Training to Teachers program? Well, one reason is that we really, as I said, try to emphasize and develop practical, modern, and evidence-based teaching. There is a literature out there about what are the best practices for teaching, how we can best help our learners, whether it's in the classroom or the clinical setting, gain knowledge and retain that knowledge moving forward. In terms of other reasons, we want to increase your familiarity with educational theory. Everything that we do in medical education is founded on theory. And so increasing our knowledge about, our familiarity with theory can help you in terms of understanding why we do what we do with regard to medical education interventions and concepts. Another reason is you're going to get exposure to a lot of different Harvard Medical School faculty. And that includes both the people who lead the large group sessions for these T2t programs, as well as for these virtual online sessions in particular, the people who lead the smaller group sessions. And that's a real opportunity, right? To get to interact with these different faculty, to become familiar with them and their areas of expertise, and to help to build up your own skills as you move forward with your own medical educational interventions and activities. In addition to developing a global network with these different Harvard Medical School faculty, you're going to, as a component of participating in this course, develop your local network with different expert medical educators, such as yourself, in Egypt. And that's maybe the biggest benefit of this course, is that you can meet, interact with, and gain positive input from these different educators in different parts of Egypt. And that local community can serve to elevate us all as we move forward in trying to understand how we can best serve our learners, whether it's in the classroom or the clinical setting. The other aspect that I really want to emphasize as a major component of and benefit from this course is gaining an understanding of medical education research. So I definitely personally am involved in a lot of different medical education research activities. And that's something that we try to emphasize in the course in terms of looking at the literature and seeing why we do what we do with regard to these different interventions. And as you'll see through the different workshops that we'll be involved in, how you can think about developing your own medical education research ideas and plans to further your own career, to further our collective understanding about medical education research and theory, and to help all of us grow collectively with regard to what we know and how we know what we know in terms of rigorous research-based practice. So I'm going to pause briefly because there is a lot of activity in the chat, and just want to make sure that we're not missing anything important. Lots of people are saying no sound, so you definitely should check your computer audio, turn your volume up if that's an issue. Other people from our operational team may intervene and provide messages about issues regarding sound. I'm glad that many of you also say that the sound is okay, so it seems like we have a little bit of a balance there. Tammy, if there's things that we should be saying about sound, please let us know. But yes, otherwise, just lots of sound issues. In terms of the question about whether you can attend the T2t program while you're in the CSRT program, I will defer to either Tammy or Jackie, our administrative experts, but my understanding is that you should do them separately rather than in parallel, just because it's a lot of work for you in terms of trying to negotiate the two programs. But we'll circle back to that at the end of this brief presentation to ensure that we answer that question. But briefly, any issues, Tammy or anybody else, that I should say to people about sound?
Hi everyone, if you're having issues trying to connect your audio, and if you've already tried to go to the bottom left corner to connect your audio, and if that's still not working, you might need to just leave the meeting and re-enter, and sometimes that helps. So I would recommend trying that if that's as a last option.
Awesome, thank you so much, Tammy. So yes, if you're not able to hear despite adjusting your sound on the computer, leaving the meeting and coming back may help. I will try to speak very slowly for the next slide or two so that the people that want to or need to do that are able to do so without missing too much more material. So sort of in that vein, as I alluded to in the prior slide, and as I'm alluding to with this overall presentation, what is a key goal of this T2t program? You're all great medical educators. You know how to work with your students. You know how to work with your residents. You know how to help your learners. But we want to help you go to the next level in terms of being medical education leaders. And so what does that mean? What does being a medical education leader mean? One thing that it means is that you are going to, as part of this program, create new educational interventions. And so an educational intervention is a new course, it's a new curriculum, it's a new teaching modality that you can use with your learners to try to change the way that you teach and change the way that people around you teach. And so as part of being a medical education leader, that implementation of new teaching methods is part of what we're going to encourage you and expect you to do as part of this T2t program. So there are ways that you have taught with your learners. There are ways that people around you have taught with your learners, and those may not be the best way to do things. And so in thinking about how best to teach, and thinking about how best to get your learners to retain and use knowledge, concepts, or topics, we're going to encourage you through this T2t program, through both our courses online and hopefully in person, as well as through our online activities, and through the assessment activities you're going to engage in, to design and implement different teaching methods that can elevate the status of and the content of the teaching that you're involved in. In addition, we want you to be part of incorporating and changing teaching practices of those around you. And so it's not just about you, but it's about improving the level of teaching of your community, of the educators with whom you work, of the people who you interact with, of your co-faculty. And so the purpose of this program, a purpose of this program, is to elevate you as a medical education leader among those around you. Finally, we want you to be innovative, creative, thoughtful, and forward-thinking in terms of looking for educational interventions that are going to improve the teaching of you, your community, and for your learners. And so all of this is about leadership. All of this is about elevating your skills as a medical education leader within your community and your area of practice. So I think this slide encompasses overall why we want you to be a part of this T2t program, why we think that this program isn't just about teaching skills, but it's about elevating your leadership and your research and your community skills in terms of working with others with regard to issues of medical education. All right, we have another 6+ things in the chat. People are asking, thank you for those of you that said the sound is okay. And then as Tammy said, yes, we are recording the session. So if you are unable to hear everything right now, this will be available through Canvas or another site to review afterwards. So you can pick up things that you might have missed due to an unstable internet connection or other issues. And then, yes, lots of issues still with sound. I'm sorry. Unfortunately, this is a web-based session, so if there's unstable internet access, that can sometimes negatively affect how these things go. So please remember, there will be a recording going forward to review if that's helpful for you. All right. So another reason to participate in the T2t program is that you can work with faculty from a variety of Harvard's different teaching hospitals. So Harvard is one medical school, but it's affiliated with a variety of different teaching hospitals in the greater Boston area. And so as a part of this course, you're going to work with faculty from Beth Israel Deaconess Medical Center. That's where I work. You'll meet people and interact with them from Massachusetts General Hospital, from Brigham and Women's Hospital, from Cambridge Health Alliance, from Mount Auburn Hospital, and possibly a couple other hospitals that are part of this Harvard constellation. And so this is good for you to begin to develop and solidify those international networking alliances and liaisons with people who are interested in similar things as you, medical education, and how we can improve things for our medical education learners. In terms of getting to the content, what we're actually going to do together during this T2t course, the first thing is there's in-person, hopefully, workshops. This will not be the first part of our T2t course, but at some point, we're going to get together and work together in person in large and small group sessions. There are virtual workshops in terms of online learning, and that's what, unfortunately, due to COVID-19 and the coronavirus, we're going to have to start with. And so online learning will be a foundation building up to, hopefully, in-person workshops in the next several months. These different workshops then become a springboard for team-based learning, both with your small groups during our breakout sessions, as well as with your assignments, as you can collaborate with each other or work together to try to develop novel, useful, innovative educational interventions to try to improve the status quo for your learners and for your educational community in which you're working. In terms of the in-person and online workshops, we really focus on application of topics and concepts. And so what that means is that you'll be exposed to some material before the workshops, and then during the workshops, there'll be actual application. And particularly for the online workshops, we really emphasize the opportunity to work in small groups. So you together can work together on different projects with a facilitator in a guided manner to try to answer questions or deal with topics or take on issues that are relevant for medical education. In terms of the online content, we do have a series of pre-recorded lectures or online recorded lectures that we do expect you to go through prior to the online or in-person workshops, with the goal of just becoming familiar with different content, topics, and ideas so that you're able to apply them in the actual in-person or virtual workshops. And so this is a way for you to meld with the material on your own pace, asynchronously, whenever you are able, prior to the workshops that are at scheduled set times. And so this blend, we think, really helps improve things for you in terms of selecting your own pace, identifying your own timeline, understanding when you're going to work through different content or materials, and then be able to and ready to apply it in the in-person workshops. Finally, for the team-based learning, there's assignments, presentations, other obligations that you'll have to do that I'll go through shortly that will potentially involve collaboration with others with regard to thinking about, identifying, and proposing different interventions with regard to medical education that can improve things for the learners with whom you interact. All right, I can't help myself. I have to check the chat very quickly. There have been many notifications about different people saying things. It seems like, yep, so mostly sound issues. So yes, recording of this will be later on, posted on Canvas and or made available to you, and then mostly people with sound issues. So if you do have actual questions about the content of what I'm going through, please do also put those in the chat, and I'll try to address those at the end of the session so that everybody's questions, issues, and perspectives are addressed as well. In terms of what we're doing as an overview, in terms of what we're thinking about with regard to the program, again, there's online recorded lectures. These are things that you're going to be exposed to. They're asynchronous. They're at your own pace, at your own timetable, but you do have to do them. To supplement these online recorded lectures, we have a series of quizzes. So each lecture is associated with a quiz, and the idea of the quiz is just to make sure that everybody's getting that basic level of knowledge from the online recorded lecture, that we're not missing major topics, that people aren't not understanding major concepts. And so you'll have online recorded lectures, there'll be some quizzes associated with that, and then we'll have a workshop. In our first workshop, a series of workshops will be e-workshops, so they'll be virtual given the reality of coronavirus and COVID-19, and we'll interact with faculty in either large group settings where all of us will be together, with an opportunity for questions and interaction, and then small group settings where we'll break up into groups, and you'll have a dedicated faculty who will facilitate your small group session with maybe 5 or 8 different learners, and you'll work through problems, or you'll answer questions, or you'll have discussions about dedicated topics. And many of these smaller group settings, small group sessions, will involve pre-work. So you'll have to think about a question or consider a topic before coming to the session, and then you'll work on it with your colleagues and with the facilitator. Once we get through that first series of workshops, there'll be another set of online recorded lectures, another set of quizzes that you'll go through, and then another workshop. And then finally, we'll repeat the cycle again and go through another series of workshops. It's unclear right now, based on coronavirus, how many of these, workshop 2 and 3, are going to be online versus in person. That's still to be determined. Certainly workshop 1, which starts shortly in August, will be an online experience. The subsequent ones, it'll depend a little bit on how things are going with our global viral pandemic. The hope is to do them in person, but that's still to be determined. If not, then we will have a very vibrant and hopefully valuable online experience for you, as you will see if you participate in the e-workshop 1 that we're putting together shortly. In addition to all of this, in terms of curricular activities with the online recorded materials, the various workshops, the quizzes that you have to go through, there's another layer of interactivity with regard to the T2t program that's worth referencing. And one of the major components that I'll talk about in a little bit is something called the capstone project. And so the capstone project is really your sort of culminative, formative, summative conclusion of all of the different concepts and topics that we talk about through the T2t workshop, in building something for you with regard to your learners in terms of thinking about how you can improve things with regard to education for the classroom or the clinical setting, wherever you may primarily focus, so that you can improve teaching and improve education with regard to your medical learners. And so the capstone project is your idea. It's a proposal about how you might change things or improve things with regard to learning in your own medical education environment. And again, I'll go through the details in the next couple of slides, but the capstone project is a big part of the T2t program, and it's worth saying out loud as part of this curricular overview. In addition to that, there'll be an individual assignment that I'll go through very briefly, in which you'll record yourself doing some teaching, and you are expected to and encouraged to apply some of the course concepts that we talk about in the T2t program to your own educational environment, and then record a brief video about that to share with your colleagues and then get feedback from them. And again, I'll go through the details of that briefly in just one second. In terms of the different curricular topics that we cover, there's a lot. This is a packed 6-month workshop in which we go through many different topics, from curricular design to principles in adult learning to applying educational theory. Again, a major area of content for this curriculum, to your various teaching practices, to thinking about medical education research and evidence-based classroom teaching methods, to active teaching strategies. And even in the first e-workshop, you'll go through 4 different components of active teaching strategies as a way to think about how we can flip that paradigm from lecturing to actual interactive, integrative educational interventions. We'll go through education and assessment, particularly in the second workshop, really elevating how we assess our learners, as well as how we assess our curricula is what we're doing with our courses, with our interventions, with our curricula, evidence-based? Is it beneficial for our learners? How can we assess that in a manner that's valid and reliable? And we'll talk about that. We're going to talk about technology-enhanced teaching. And many of you I know have used WhatsApp, Telegram, and other online social media-based platforms to engage in teaching. And we'll talk about different tools that we might use for audience response systems in the classroom-based setting, as well as ways to supplement or augment your social media online-based teaching that you're doing synchronously or asynchronously with your learners. We'll talk about effective strategies for clinical teaching. So how can we best do what we do at the bedside, in the clinic, in the operating room with our learners, to try to make those interactions as valuable as possible for them. And then finally, I've said this already, but we definitely emphasize medical education research as an important component of this curriculum, an important perspective on how we think about why we do what we do with our different learners in medical education settings. All right. Quick pause to just check the chat, make sure that we are not missing any major questions. So I'm glad, so I will again defer to Jackie and or Tammy about the questions about can I attend the T2t while I'm doing the CSRT concurrently? I think the answer is no, but I'll defer to them. And then,
yeah. Oh, sorry. I can jump in. So because the T2t and the CSRT programs both run concurrently, literally at the same times online, it would not be possible to do both of them at the same time.
Awesome. Thank you. So just logistically, and it looks like that was from Amani. Unfortunately, that's, as Tammy just said, not like temporally logistically possible. We would love to have you do both. Unfortunately, they'll have to be in series rather than in parallel. And then Natha asks, is this for all healthcare professionals, including pharmacists? And again, yes, if you are a healthcare professional interested in medical education, we'd love to have you as a part of this. I'll go through a little bit about requirements at the end of this, but yes, to answer that question, we'd love to have you as part of this. In terms of Amir's question about the link for submitting the certificates, I'll admit I'm not 100% sure what you're referring to. If you're talking about where you apply for this program, my understanding is that's through the Ministry of Health, and then they will give us your information once you've been cleared by them. So it's through those contacts. And then, yes, and then Jacqueline answered that it's through the Ministry of Health with regard to applying and getting approved. And briefly, great. So all of these other ones are about sound and other issues. So moving forward, sorry, there's a lot of questions on the chat, so we pause intermittently to make sure that we're answering them and not missing major issues that we need to address. In terms of the actual curricular content, so as I said, the e-workshop one that we're going to do in August, starting soon, involves two different major themes. One is curriculum design. So that's thinking about, how do you put together a new course or curriculum, or how do you develop a teaching intervention in a rational, evidence-based, and effective manner? And so we'll talk about a lot of different considerations related to that issue. The second major theme is thinking about active teaching strategies. So how do we actually engage our learners, whether it's in the classroom or the clinical setting, to try to really augment their participation, improve their knowledge retention, and the durability of that teaching? And so for workshop one, those two themes are really augmented and emphasized. For workshop two, we come back to active teaching strategies again and talk about different considerations with regard to specific strategies that are related to assessment, evaluation, and feedback. And so that redundancy between workshop 1 and workshop 2 is intended to bridge that gap between designing a curriculum and then assessing, evaluating, and providing feedback for learners and the curriculum itself. And the teaching strategies are really the foundation of how we do all of those things. So we're pretty happy about these different workshops in terms of their organization, content, and design, and think that these could be valuable topics for you in terms of thinking about your own learners in the classroom or the clinical setting.